Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Troyer, the Dean of the Belk College of Business at UNC Charlotte. So on behalf of the Belk College, welcome to the Entrepreneurial Decision Series. This year, our theme is art and design in the marketplace, and we're really excited to partner with the College of Arts and Architecture on the series this year. So this is just one more reminder that the entrepreneurial spirit crosses disciplines, and 49er alumni, like our speaker tonight, are driving business through their leadership, creativity, and innovation. So you can learn more about the entrepreneurship programming through the Belk College at belkcollege.uncc.edu/innovate. So we are pleased to have with us our UNC Charlotte College of Arts and Architecture alum, Karin Liljegren. She can pronounce that for you later, maybe a little bit better. I'm going to have the Dean of the College of Arts and Architecture, Brooke Mueller, introduce her in just a second. But I wanted to let everybody know that we want to give you a chance to ask questions. So as the discussion is rolling, you can submit your questions in the chat function at any time. All right, so now please, let me turn it over to Dean Brooke Mueller.
Thank you, Jennifer, very much. And good evening, everybody. And thank you to the College of Business and to Justin for facilitating this and wanting to partner with the College of Arts and Architecture. And it really means a lot to us, and we're really grateful. And I hope this is just the sign of what's to come between the two colleges. So Karin Liljegren, I don't have a big, long, formal introduction. I want her to share her work and a little of her background, but she is a fellow of the American Institute of Architects, as Jennifer mentioned, a graduate of our School of Architecture, and the founder and principal of the highly successful LA-based design practice Omgivning, which is a multi-dimensional practice, as Karin will soon explain. I really appreciate that the practice works at a range of scales, from small cafes to 2 million square foot historic landmarks. And yet I would say, and look at the website, you'll see this, there's a consistent design philosophy, and I would say a consistent and exciting business philosophy, a very forward-thinking practice, and one only need to look at the team of architects and interior designers. 50% are women, 59% are people of color, 55% of the leadership are women, and 8% are architects. Karin, if you could explain that, I would be grateful.
Dogs. We're our doggies.
Oh, architect. And so, Karin, I mentioned at the beginning, before people patched in, I love your website's mention of "we are in love." We're in love with the extraordinary urban fabric of places in downtown Los Angeles. Our architecture and interior projects reveal hidden value by uncovering new character. We're in love with the beauty of old high-rises, warehouses, theaters, department stores, and plenty else. And so it's so apparent that the passion of breathing life into spaces and places is fundamental to the firm's tremendous success. And we're really excited and honored that you're with us today. And everybody, in our own virtual way, let's welcome Karin Liljegren.
Thank you. Wow, that's like, I think the nicest intro I've had. I love that. Yeah, and I graduated in 90. So I was, I think, the last graduating class in the old building, which I can't even remember the name. Was it Atkins or something? Anyway, I wasn't even in the new building. That's how long ago it was. And I've been in LA ever since. So I'm literally going to give my whole life story in this thing. So let me share. But hopefully it'll be relatively entertaining. Okay, so I'm literally going back to childhood because I think where our roots come from really does, form a lot of where we go. I was, in like major suburbia, 1950s, Beaver Cleaver, even though I was really a kid of the 70s. The structure of my family was very, very much that. And I I grew up just outside of New York, and I was obsessed with New York. I used to sneak in all the time. And back in the 80s, when I was growing up there, it was not exactly the safest place to go in as a 13-year-old girl with blonde hair and no urban experience. But I knew very early on I wanted to get out of New Jersey and go far away. So UNCC was such a perfect choice for me at the time. It really allowed me to grow and to figure out who I am. So like I said, I graduated in 90. I took a year off in one of the mini recessions and then went to UCLA for my master's and finished that in 94. That was a 3-year program. So then another mini recession, very hard to get a job, but I happened to find a really, really great firm through actually some alumni at UCLA, which was Killeford Fleming Architects. And I was so lucky to have to be in a firm where I was encouraged to grow, given opportunities, just take the ball and run with it kind of place. Didn't matter that I was a female or even when I became pregnant or everything was very, very supportive. And in 1999, so I started there in 94, and in 99, the city of Los Angeles had created this new ordinance, which really incentivized the redevelopment of our old historic core, which in our downtown was pretty much empty at the time. Unbelievable. Millions and millions and millions of square feet just empty in these old historic buildings. So this developer incentive, we were lucky enough, our firm, to get the first project. I happened to be thrown on it. I didn't even like historic buildings before this. So you never know where life throws you and where, you completely turn in a different direction. So I spent the next 10 years at KFA overseeing all of our adaptive reuse projects. And I think I completed, it was about close to 2,000 residential units in about, I don't know, I think it was like 13 buildings or something like that. So they were mostly all historic high rises that were offices at one point, and I converted them to housing. So I got a really good base of experience from schematic all the way to CA. I was the client contact. I was the project manager. I was the designer. It was a fantastic opportunity for that. And then in 2009, when the recession was at its probably height, I had just recently got divorced. I became a single parent. I moved downtown, and I was looking at the firm I was with for 15 years, and I love working on there, and I was on the partner track. But something in my gut just said, I think I need to start my own firm. So everyone's like, are you crazy? You're one of the few people I know that still has your job. But I did. And I think I had just turned 40 too. So there was also that like midlife crisis thing, maybe like, hey, am I really on the right track kind of little gauge of that birthday. So I started Omgivning. And Omgivning is a Swedish word that means the way a space feels. And what was important to me right off the bat was, I didn't do a business plan, by the way. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't have all these goals you're supposed to have. I was kind of winging it. And I was going from a much more kind of intuitive place when I started. But I just kept saying, what are the most important things to me? And what is it that I want to do with this firm? So one of them was I wanted to really integrate architecture and interiors because I was starting to see in our industry a big divide between the two industries. And especially working with existing buildings, which is what I wanted to continue to pursue, I really wanted to find a way to integrate that, whether it's with other firms or within our firm. But definitely our firm is very architecture and interiors based. Sometimes we're the architects who work with other interior designers. Sometimes it's vice versa. Sometimes we're executive architects and we work with other design architects. And I think that not having an ego about having to be the designer, having to be the person in charge all the time, but having these different roles really makes you so much more well-rounded because you learn from all these other different people that you're working with. The other thing that was really important to me was to continue my passion for revitalizing downtown LA. which we have definitely done. And now we're like wanting to expand that to much, like even, some international work if we can get that to happen. And then the other thing was, I'll just be bold and say I really did not want to work with assholes. There are some assholes out there, and I like, life is too short. I don't want to work with people that are jerks, and I really want to work with people that I like, and they have to be good at what they do. That's you can't just work with somebody you like. So like really kind of everything that I did as I moved forward with starting this firm when I had no idea what I was doing was, if it met the criteria of those three things, I would just keep opening the doors and opening the doors, opening the doors. And then things kind of moved in the right direction. And taking action, of course, you got to take action when you open those doors. You got to walk through them. So Omgivning, our approach is very macro to micro. So on the macro side, we're really engaged in advocacy and writing city policy. Because we do a lot of physical work, boots on the ground. We're seeing the problems with some of the codes or the ordinances, and now at this point we really have the voice of, or we have the ear. Right? I was going to say we have a voice, and we finally have an ear from planning and city council and the mayor's office and everything. So that's been really good to focus on existing buildings and how to create developer incentives, how to reinterpret codes. Also on the macro side, how that one building or site connects to the larger scale. So there's the scale of that block to that neighborhood to the city. All of those things, all those interconnections are so important. And then down to the micro scale is really, again, that interior side of how does it feel to be in that space, which really has to do with that humanist side, human-centered design and health and well-being and the details that you experience in a space, or the color and the light, all those kinds of things. All right, he already gave my stats, so I don't need to tell you those, but yeah, I'm very proud of my crew. They're an awesome group. So now I'm just going to go into a few projects just to kind of give a sense. This is the biggest one. So, Sears had, I think it's 6 distribution centers around the country. They all started in about 1920, and then they all finished expanding in 1970 or something like that. So all 6 of them almost look identical. Even the massing is really similar. The way that it was added on in each time period is really similar. It's very interesting stuff. Now, some of them have been demolished. Some are sitting empty. A few have been revitalized. And so this one was, we got this through to permitting. So we're 100% permitted and ready to start construction. And the owners kind of put the kibosh on the whole thing, which is really sad, when you work on something for 5 years. But 1,000 units, 200,000 square feet of office, 60,000 square feet of retail and commercial, some parks in the site around it. You can see, that doesn't work. I can't zoom in like that. So you can see the scale of the building, and then here's downtown. This diagram shows how it was built in 8 different phases. And as you can see, that first phase of 1927 and, where the building kind of ended right here. So in the section where we had to carve into the building for all these light courts, one of the ideas was, one of the ideas is always in reusing and putting a new use in an old building. How do you connect to the former use? How do you connect to the past of the building? How do you connect to other people in the building, especially a building this large with this many people? You want to find ways to create a sense of community, a culture, a brand of the entire project. And so tying into all those different things, the past, where is it going right now, the community around it, are all really important things. So one of the fun things I like about this one is, so this used to be the first exterior wall. So we found opportunities for some of these light courts to be carved out at a location of what used to be an exterior. Does that make sense? It's a little confusing, but so this light court comes down, and this wall was basically restored to be the original exterior wall. And then the other three walls are obviously all new and very contemporary. Other things like the old mail chutes. So they would put these like Amazon today. In fact, well, that's a whole other thing. You put the package on the mail chute and it goes all the way down 7 stories. And at the bottom, there's all the trucks coming in on the side. And, it's just these stories, these buildings have such fun stories to kind of bring back, but also bring in these new uses. Just another example. This one's a little bit more of a like more iconic. Well, that's an iconic building too, but ornate Beaux-Arts revival building in downtown LA on Broadway. And this is going to be the new Proper Hotel. So Proper is kind of a boutique line that's, I think it's on the West Coast only. No, maybe there's one in Miami. So this is just about to open. So we're excited for that. And then on the really small scale, as Brooke had mentioned, we do really small to really big. We'll do little cafes where we will design pretty much everything, all the furniture, the light fixtures, we'll help with branding, signage, and menu design and stuff like that. This is another one that we did that was a little cafe. And also when we do these bigger core and shell projects, like that Sears project, it really helps to inform when you're doing large core and shell projects, when you also have these, if you're designing a full restaurant, you really understand how that restaurant works when you're doing it in a big core and shell project. So, I got my FAIA last year, which was kind of a big deal. The biggest deal was how hard it was to apply for this thing. And you had to go back and like analyze every single thing you've done in your entire career, and you have to back it up with stats and all this stuff. So this is actually a diagram I did for that, just talking about downtown, but I think it's an interesting diagram because so on the left is kind of like some stats of the history of downtown LA. And the red part shows kind of basically the occupancy of the historic core and how it was super popular, in the 30s, had an enormous boom. And then it really plateaued off in the 60s as, everybody wanted modern new high rises that were built elsewhere. Thank goodness they didn't tear down these buildings. This just kind of became an empty area for all these years. And then 99 was when I said that adaptive reuse ordinance was integrated. And when I started working in downtown, and then just how that kind of launched. And at this point was 2009 when I left KFA and started Omgivning. And then in the next 10 years with Omgivning, we've completed 1,900 residential units or keys, hotel rooms, and about 5.5 million square feet of space that's permitted. I did include Sears in there because that was a big number, even though it's not constructed, so it's permitted. So I have a lot of other passions, I think, as so many of us do, interests and passions, and some of them I just started exploring and they've kind of expanded. At the end, I'm going to kind of show the kind of future growth business-wise of what I'm thinking. But I love light fixtures, and I really wanted to create a line of light fixtures that integrate plants. And as a part of our kind of humanist and our human-centered design aspect of our company, we wanted to also design fixtures that integrate plants. So I was like, well, hey, why don't we just start a whole separate company that's called Omalum? It's kind of connected to Omgivning, and then it has the Om in it. But it's about light fixtures. And then the idea with this company is that it would have just kind of the basic light fixtures that we use all day long, just like simple linear pendants or, vanity light fixtures in the residential units. And then these specialty design light fixtures that integrate biophilia into our light fixtures. So that was the kind of company idea with this company. And then the next thing was just, interest in product and all that kind of stuff. So I still have a future goal to have a product line, but with a house that I was had gutted and was redoing, we really took the opportunity to kind of play with some prototypes and basically, try some stuff out. So we did that. And the main thing I'm working on right now is I've always wanted to have a development arm. So we're going to have a separate company, probably called Ohm Development. I haven't figured exactly what it's going to be called yet. And as the first project, we're going to be purchasing a building, moving our office into it, and we kind of have a little bit of a different concept. It's not co-working and it's not private offices. It's a bit of a blend of the two. So we're really close to making an offer right now. I've been able to leverage Omgivning because we can do an SBA loan and we can be the main tenant, and kind of again leveraging that one company to start a whole different company, which will be its own entity. So very excited about that. And then just other things we've been working on, like with this year and COVID, right off the bat when we saw projects stalling, stopping, and everybody freaking out, we said, okay, let's just immediately turn this into what are we learning from this, what's going to change, and all that kind of stuff. So we started right away last April in doing design charrettes in the office to think about what's going to change in workplace, what's going to change in multifamily and urban reprogramming, knowing that retail was already dying before. Now that, we know it's really going to be dying. What are we going to be doing with these spaces, these buildings? How can we reuse them? All that kind of stuff. And then it was also a marketing tool because it became a great way to connect with all the people that we know and new people we didn't know, and do lots of speaking events to get these ideas out there. And we also started to become more thought leaders because of that outreach and just making connections. So it's been a wonderful way to plant seeds, and we're starting to see a lot of them kind of sprout and become projects now, which is great. Plus, it was a great way to keep the office activated during a really demoralizing time, to get excited about something, which has been very, very difficult. And then on the right side, with some of the advocacy stuff that I just mentioned briefly, analyzing the codes, coming up with new ideas, how to make it better, all that kind of stuff. Those are some of the diagramming and analysis that we're helping the city with. So now I'm going to try to explain my complicated, what we've now coined the interstellar map. So, and, we'll go, I guess, more with questions into some of my thinking of business and et cetera. But like I said before, I didn't have a business plan, which I know is a big no-no. And so so this would be, I'm giving starting architecture and interiors in 2009. And then the interest in and the starting of Ohm, the light fixture company, and Ohm Home is, maybe that's what that was my house that I actually renovated, and Ohm Touch being part of the product, right? Just some little things that start to come. And then, the other idea of the development companies, and then, starting to see how we can connect with other little companies that are starting. Like I have a friend who started a tile company and a friend who started a metal fabrication company, and how we can all be interconnecting to help each other grow, to support each other on social media. Like we love to show Star Tile or Base Collaborative work and vice versa. And hey, we're working on this project with them and all that kind of stuff. And so actually this interstellar map I did a year and a half ago. So it was before COVID, and we're not actually too far off for 2022. But just kind of seeing how this thing can grow. Now, when I'm talking about this, it's also the idea that it's kind of the anti-corporate monopoly, that these are more independent, small companies that are their own entity with their own ownership, and that they interconnect with each other to help each other grow. So like when I said Omgivning was maybe loaning some labor or some money to start the development company. Omgivning is a separate company, so Omgivning would get paid back eventually. But we can leverage what Omgivning has to start a new company with different owners. The other idea is that I see, especially younger generations, very interested in many, many things. And I really want to be able to foster a business model that allows growth through either sweat equity or a way to get a piece of the pie instead of being an employee for the rest of your life. So I tried to explain this to my staff. So I did this little diagram. So I'm giving her number one, say, so let's say this person works full-time, at Omgivning, but they have all these other little things that they're really interested in. They don't make any income from those little things. And then say in X amount of years, whatever that is, say they start to spread some of their interests, like they're really into designing graphics, and it turns into a fabric line, that maybe we're collaborating with another firm and they can get some royalties through that fabric line for textiles. And then maybe share, maybe that's like they dedicate some time to nonprofits because that's really important to them, but it's kind of fostered through Omgivning. So then their income starts to be supplemented with something that they're actually getting something from, that they put their sweat and tears and passion and creativity in. Say I'm giving her number two, is really interested in the development model, and they're putting in a lot of time right up front. They're putting in 20% of their time in this development model, but no income. And then as time goes on, they start to get income from this model, and maybe at that point they're having kids, so they have to reduce their time at the office. Again, the flexibility of whatever people need. And then I'm giving her number three was just kind of showing the flexibility in the office of like, hey, you could literally go start an Omgivning in Detroit. If you've got connections, you can get some work there, or now just work remote. There is that scenario to you. So I was, as a business model, I was trying to show flexibility and adaptability for growth for everybody in the firm to basically do whatever they want to do. So this is kind of the interstellar map in a few years and how it might look. So again, this is not Omgivning taking over the world like Google or Facebook. It is a bunch of independent little tiny firms that can really interconnect and help each other grow with their own thing. So that is my presentation.
Thank you, Karin. That was great.
Thank you. Sure was.
Bit of your journey and a bit of your history and number of your projects and such, and your vision going forward. Very, very interesting. We'll piggyback on that here in just a bit. So we'll start out now with questions not only from myself, but also from Dean Mueller. And then at the same time, if y'all have questions in the audience, please just send them to the chat function, and we'll get to those we'll spend about 10 or 15 minutes on those at the end as well. So please send in your questions via the chat function. Karin, your educational background is a bachelor's in arts and architecture from UNCC, and then a master's in architecture from UCLA. How did you get your business legs? You started out in your first employment position, but what made you comfortable, and how did you go about learning the business side of things?
So when I was at KFA, they promoted me pretty quickly, and they were very transparent with everything happening in the office. So I felt like I knew how to write contracts. I knew how to get the clients. I knew how to do the billing. I knew how to, I was a part of the management team, leadership team in the office. So I felt like I really understood. Until, so I was like, oh, okay, how hard can this be to go out on your own? And then I realized all the things I didn't know. So everything related to business was completely new to me, basically.
But that's something that we commonly see, is that entrepreneurs will work for somebody else for 5 or 10 years, get to learn the customers, get to learn the suppliers, get to learn just the, the marketing aspects and such. So they learn part of the business and they get comfortable enough to start out. So that's similar to your experience as well. Dimo, you want to follow that up or?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of calling an audible because I was so struck by your presentation, Karin. I really was. And so when you talked about the fact that you were fortunate to work in a firm where you were encouraged to grow, and then you said something in my gut, I wanted to start my own firm. And then you said, and then what you're doing is you're paying it forward. And the last few slides I was just blown away by. And so somebody could start Omgivning in Detroit, and that'd be really cool. And I'm just wondering, is there something about that? Was it that first professional practice experience, or something about your education, or what led you to think about such a wonderful way of being in business and supporting the people you work with?
I think it's probably evolved over time. It's probably a number of things, right? I mean, certainly my parents, right? But definitely my experience at KFA and how much they paid. I mean, I left and I was competing against projects with them within a few years, and they were supportive of me. They would actually send projects to me too. And when we competed on projects, it would be like a fun thing, I mean, really very rare. I think also, but seeing how corporate America is taking over these mega companies that are taking over the world is something that irritates me big time. And humongous firms like Gensler, frankly, really frustrate me. And they'll try to swoop in and take us out on projects a lot. And I'll be just honest, it frustrates me. And then, just again, seeing that I think that there's more and more and more entrepreneurial spirit in more and more people. And so to be able to create a structure that can facilitate that is a great thing.
Thank you. It's inspiring.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. Instead of you trying to protect yourself from these other competitors, it's almost like you're taking the opposite approach and saying, hey, we need to get all our feeders out there and let everybody attack them instead.
Well, I think the tide is turning too. I think people they want to help smaller businesses.
Yeah, I see that more and more as well here in Charlotte as well. So one of the things that I really liked about your presentation was the interstellar map of your vision going forward. It's really exploded. And so one thing that we teach about entrepreneurs is alertness, which is really about this motivation to create an image of the future. And you've kind of codified that image of the future, that aha, the different aha moments that come along. So what do you do as an entrepreneur that allows you to be alert to opportunities? Is it just setting aside time during the day to just think? Is it listening to your customers in a certain way and trying to hear what they're saying? Is it something else that you're doing that supports your alertness?
I think for the main thing is that the way I look at everything in the world is how can it be better? How can we improve it? How can we interconnect things? So it's like my lens of all of my life, so even if I'm walking down the street, it's, oh, if we could just do this to this to this to that house, that would make it so much better. Or, I don't know. It's just like a lens that I see all of life through. But in terms of like little habitual things I do, I spread myself thin all over the place. So I attend a lot of seminars. I'm not a reader, but I'm a skimmer. I'm a headline reader. So it's more like a lot of stuff, but not very in depth. But that's just who I am. I'm not a uber detail person. So again, a lot of that high level understanding of a lot of things allows me to see how things can connect or what needs to be improved. I don't know. I do try to do like 1 or 2 Saturdays a month where I really say, okay, no work. I'm just going to allow myself to spend time on some of the more creative endeavors of some of these other businesses I'm trying to start, or that kind of thing. But like, you have to set time away from the urgent things that we're forced to do every day, and spend time on the important things. I think those, yeah.
Yeah. So you're alert. You're connecting the dots, right? You're getting the dots from the seminars and from the things that you're reading, and then you're taking the time to connect those dots along the way. So
yeah. And I have like 1,000 lists, and they're all over the place. And I'm at this point, I can't organize them anymore. But try to take action quickly. Like, oh, I have I saw this thing, and who would really benefit from it is if I sent that to that person. And then that creates that connection with that person, right? So then now I'm in that person's mind. And it's not like I did that intentionally to get work from them or whatever, but it's a really important aspect of having a network of people connections, because that is how a company grows.
any more?
Yeah, Karin, I really have also appreciated what you said about interior design and architecture and wanting to have there be a really close relationship between those two. And this connects in some ways to the question of your process for evaluating the attractiveness of a potential opportunity. I mean, there are times you've done a lot of work. And so how do you determine which projects to take on, and what's the attraction there? Like what's the driver to say, yeah, this is something we really are eager to pursue?
So it's tough, especially when there's a recession or a pandemic going on and you lost so much work. But like when I first started, for example, that was in the recession. And again, since I had those 3 things in mind: downtown revitalization, not working with jerks, and there still were a few, but and then the architecture and interiors, I was like, anything that came, I was like, okay, does it fit in those 3 categories? And if it does, then okay, let's move forward. Let's open that door. Now we're a company of close to 40. So now we have systems, we have like go, no go documents as soon as a potential project comes in. So we kind of decided as a collective leadership team, what are those protocols? Is it going to make profit, or is it something that can really kind of promote who we are at the office? Does it fit our core values? Does it fit within our 10-year plan? It's much more business savvy now. By the way, a lot of we started using the book Traction. I don't know if it's an entrepreneurial operating system. We started that about 1.5 years ago, I think. And that's been a fantastic system that we've been able to put in as a framework for everything that we're doing. All the decisions that we make, our goals, our 90-day rocks, the 1, 3, 5, 10-year goals, and all that kind of stuff. It's been a great system, which we needed, because it's not it's a 40-person firm, not a 3-4-person firm anymore.
Right.
Might there be an example or two that you can provide, and following up on Dean Muller's question there, that you're looking at the opportunity, you said, this is a great opportunity, we got to do it right now, and then versus another separate opportunity, and this doesn't fit our core values or whatever, let's ignore this one for now. Do you mind talking?
Yeah, now I think it's this, like we have this go, no go form. And so now it doesn't even have to come to me right away. So we have 2 people that are designated to, like, a potential project comes in or an RFP, and it's like, okay, you do the research on the client and the project, and then go through the go, no go form. Does it fit the criteria of what's important to us? Does it fit within our goals and all that kind of stuff? And then if it's if it's go, then there we go.
Is it as simple as that, or do y'all, what influences the timing of those sort of go, no go when you make that kind of first meaningful, tangible investment? you just fill out the form and it's a go, or you make that investment, or what influences that timing?
Well, so the investment, you're talking about projects within Omgivning, architectural projects, right?
Well, I mean, yes, I mean, to a certain extent, as you go out, you're no longer kind of the core, maybe entrepreneur driving that, but maybe you make an investment as well. But either way, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's just that it has to fit within the criteria of these other goals. I think one example of where I didn't necessarily, like Omalum, okay, so the light fixture company, I kind of dove into that without having, I didn't take the time to set goals or to set a lot of time to figure out what was important to us. Like I described to you that it was, hey, we want to do these like fixtures that we use all the time in our offices, you know, in our own projects, so that we can sell to ourselves, you know, so we can have a company that sells to our projects, that it meets our aesthetics and stuff, and that we would do these kind of more decorative biophilia oriented fixtures. But I don't know, we didn't think farther ahead than that. And so right now it's just all on hold. You know, I've literally got product, I've got the website, and I don't know how to sell the product because I don't have time. I need a new manufacturer because I'm not going back to China. That was a disaster. And I need a new partner. So like, I just don't have time to do those things. So it's kind of on hold, but that sometimes a pause is not necessarily a bad thing because it allows you to take a different perspective and look at it. So I do want to get that kickstarted again. Wait, I don't know if that answered your question. I went on a little tangent there.
Well, it sounds like you ought to have some UNCC students help you out.
Yeah, there you go. Anybody into light fixtures?
I'm sure we could find a few. More?
Well, I'm going to pick up on that. So when we spoke before, when we were setting this up, you discussed your experience and how you've learned, and you said something to the effect that if I knew what I know now, I might not have become an entrepreneur. And you said that in jest, but can you kind of clarify that and what some of your key lessons or learnings have been along your path to the successful businesses that you operate today?
Yeah, I think I didn't know what I was getting into. I thought I knew more than I did. Let's see. I'm just trying to think too. I wish that I had some business classes. I wish that I understood who I was more when I was younger, but none of us do. I think people in school today probably are more self-aware than my generation or other generations. Like it seems like we all keep getting more self-aware, which is a wonderful thing. I didn't realize that I had major leadership and organizational skills. So I wasn't nurturing that. I was just trying to be the designer because that's what you're supposed to do when you're in architecture school. Yeah, I wish I had some mentors that maybe saw some of those things or knew how to help steer me. But yeah, I do wish that I had just some basic business knowledge.
Yeah, you're not alone.
Yeah.
It's so that's something we ought to think about as we continue to partner with the College of Business. And
yeah, this is such a great thing that you guys are doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The tide is changing, but still entrepreneurship is typically seen as being more male dominant. A lot of the role models that we typically think of are men. Any tips for female students in terms of how to navigate kind of the more male dominant context of entrepreneurship?
So, and I think this goes for, race and ethnicity and gender and sexual orientation whatever it is, there's a lot of minority groups that aren't really represented enough. And so I think, again, I was really lucky because my experience at KFA being so supported and encouraged, and there's no glass ceiling. So I think number one is we need to recognize that we need to put ourselves in environments that are healthy, that we can grow. Don't stay in a firm that is, or with people that are pushing you down or not giving you an opportunity to grow and explore. But also, again, so much, I feel like I keep saying interconnectedness and stuff, but it really is true. Connecting with other people is so important. And many times I've tried to do everything in a silo, like put all the weight of the world on my shoulders. And maybe I wasn't confident enough to express all these ideas I had and things I wanted to do because they were a little crazy. But to connect with people that align with us in some way. So, maybe it's, for me, it was a lot of women, actually. I suddenly found a lot of women that worked at the city or for the mayor's office or with these other agencies or developers that we just kind of bonded and they became good friends. And I think a lot of moving forward, I don't even know if people necessarily try to cut other people out as much as people try to describe it that way, but I think there's a natural tendency to just want to bring up somebody who's a friend or somebody is good, and that they're good because they're a friend. You want to help them and move them up, right? So like male, white male dominated, I don't think it was necessarily always just trying to push other people out. It was just like, hey, I got this friend, we have beers and he's great and he's got all these ideas, and so hey, I recommend him to be your da-da-da. A lot of times I think that's just how it happens. So aligning with other groups that you feel that connection, whether it's a racial thing or an ethnic thing or a gender thing or an interest. I have an interest in cycling and I'm hanging out with other cyclists, and then they're connecting me with other things. I think we need to look at it more broader than just gender or anything like that.
Justin, when do we want to open it up, or do we want to ask a couple more? Or
well, I was thinking right now, actually.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
And there is one, Mark Colon, my colleague in advancement, who's an alum, asks, how did you talked about growing up in New Jersey and wanting to get out, but why UNC Charlotte? Like what? And you talked about what a great fit, but how did that happen?
It was pretty random, actually. I thought I was going to go to Syracuse. I had done a pre-college program there. I did really well. And then I didn't get in. And I was like, wait, what? How can I not get in? So I had to scramble, and I found some other schools, and UNCC was one of them. I didn't even know it existed. And I went down there and I was so welcomed and on a very personal level. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I was treated like such a number at Syracuse. And by the way, they made an administrative error with my application. So they missed out, I think.
Big time.
But yeah, so I think, life sometimes just throws you in different places that you don't think about. And sometimes it's for a reason.
Was there a particular faculty member or two that helped you form your vision?
Yeah, I mean, okay, well, Ken, I see Ken on here. So I don't know, should I say Ken told me I should quit architecture, and then, but he said it was, maybe I get this wrong, Ken, but I think you said something like it was when you see somebody that has it, but they aren't necessarily applying themselves as much as they can, you want to give them a little push. Tell me if I got that right or wrong, but I think it was something along those lines. And I've had a few people in my life do that to me when I was young. Those times when that occurred, it made me say, screw you, I'll show you. So it worked for me. I don't know whether it works for all personalities. Bob McLean was, I think, the one that really he was trying to I don't know. It's a long story. He was great. I love Bob.
Bob's doing very well, Karin.
Great.
And I'll let him know that you spoke of him.
Yeah.
And so is Ken.
Well, Ken had a question himself. The architecture program at UNC Charlotte always defined architecture as a form of community development. That's the question of how an architect engages the full life of buildings, living community neighbors might be seen as the business of building an enterprise of interconnectedness. Your thoughts on that? Should I repeat
That's
that?
more of a statement than a question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I made it as a statement, but I think Karin actually just illustrated it beautifully in the last 20 minutes. I think what she's accomplished is a beautiful example of, I think she even used the word connection so many times. And, you know, I, of course, will take that as drawing lessons from what she experienced in our program. What are the most difficult connections that you have made in your practice and then found them to be beneficial?
I don't know whether it's difficult, but I like a real insecurity that I had to talking to people in a place of power or, you know, like older that had a much, like, you know, a higher level or whatever, or someone that was kind of like a star architect, or those were difficult because I didn't feel like I had anything to offer, or you know, that they would ever look at me as something that, you know, had something going on. And now, by just keep putting myself out there, a lot of those people have become some of my closest friends, and that's kind of neat.
Cool.
Wendy Fishman had a similar sort of question here. It sounds like your description of entrepreneurship embraces community. Would you say that that's the new business model to embrace?
Well, I guess I don't know, since I haven't gone to business school. I don't know a lot of the other business models that are out there. I'm kind of just doing my own thing, which I feel like is based on where a direction might be headed. You know, less mega company structure and more independence. I think people are tired of people being gazillionaires and everyone else can't even afford a home to buy. So
community is.
That was actually about community. Wait, say it. Ask the question again.
It sounds like your description of entrepreneurship embraces community. Would you say that's the new business model to embrace?
Yeah. So, and again, I personally feel like that is the business model to embrace, because again, it's helping each other out as opposed to being uber competitive and shutting everyone out. Because really, when you can combine forces, I still feel like there's a lot more that you can do.
You know, one of the things that I find about students is that they're very protective of their ideas. And finding the gold, striking the gold is only part of the story. You got to figure out how to mine the gold and get, you know, process it and everything else to get it to market. You seem to be one about sharing your ideas. Can you explain your rationale about why you're comfortable sharing your ideas?
Well, then that has to go into my whole thing of trying to take down the egocentric architect role, which is a whole nother conversation where I'll probably be saying things I shouldn't say.
Those are the best presentations.
What's that?
Those are the best presentations.
Like, I honestly don't even remember when I was at UNCC experiencing any of that, but certainly in Los Angeles, there are a lot of totally egocentric, design crazed firms that are very competitive, and it's it's so ego driven that it's very, to me, it's a total turnoff. And also I think as you grow up, like when I was younger, I definitely wanted to hold my own ideas. Like, no, that was my idea. Don't I get credit for that? But once you start growing up, you realize, oh, it doesn't really matter. I don't need to take credit for that. And I'm confident with who I am to not have to, like in the firm now, I don't go to them, oh, actually that was my idea. It's Omgivning. It's all of our ideas together.
I love that. I had a question. So we have a number of architecture folks, students and faculty and in the audience, but also business students. And what would you say to business students who might have a range of options in terms of the kind of sector they want to enter into? Why the creative sector? Why design? What's in it for them? Why would that be an attractive direction to pursue?
That's interesting.
Because you would like somebody, like you said, if I had more management experience or whatever, you want to find those kindred spirits. So what's the
well, I think, if we say creatives or whatever, so how I look at my architectural experience, education was, it more than anything, it taught me how to think and to be critical, to push myself, my mind, what I think is something is supposed to be, like to push it, to expand. Like, so to me, that's what my architectural education really, really did. A lot of other things too, but like as a core. So I think when, teaming up with creatives, that creative problem solving, that creativity is always going to push boundaries. And I think as a business student, that would be a great opportunity. Because it seems like that would bring more things. I don't know. That's a totally new question. I've never thought of that before.
What you mentioned there, though, in terms of expanding your mind, we were informally chatting before this presentation, and you mentioned you were just skiing, and I think back when I was skiing as a youngster, and my father saying, well, if you don't fall, you don't get better. You're not pushing yourself hard enough. Entrepreneurs fail. They have setbacks along the way. Are there key setbacks that you think about, and how did you react? How did you respond to those?
Well, I think this last year in COVID was a good example. Well, all right. So two things. If something is growing at some point in time, well, no, not at some point in time. If something is growing, it is constantly changing, right? So to be ahead of that, to know, oh, okay, now this is changing, and now I have to do this, right? Because it's just happening so fast, you don't even have time to think about it. So there's always setbacks of, say, the way I was managing the firm, when it was me managing the firm, and like certainly there were some major setbacks of it wasn't working anymore with me managing the firm. And as it's growing, there needs to be a whole new organization of how the company works, and it has to constantly evolve and constantly change. So I think you can't get to that next level of growing without having many setbacks all along the way, from daily to monthly to yearly, right? And I think last year was a big, it still is a huge setback. And just thinking about what do you do when you lose, like a third of your work, and what's important to you, all that kind of stuff. That was certainly a big setback.
What have you figured out when you lose a third of your work?
Well, so I realized as a leader of the company, I had to make a choice of, this is what we're going to do, and get everybody aligned, try to get everybody aligned with it. And so I made a choice to keep all of our staff, which was a pretty bold choice because a lot of the staff didn't have project work to work on. Thank God we got the PPP money that really, really helped us because that allowed us to keep some of the staff. And then instead of just like, oh yeah, you're just doing whatever, there's so many super important things to do that you never have time for when you're too busy with projects. So like getting our detail library up to snuff, and like those the reimagining series that I talked about before, doing design charrettes and putting them together in a report and then speaking about it. Like, oh, that was all really, really important to expand our brand, to expand our company, to become more of a thought leader, to make more connections, which brings more work, right? So yeah, that was, I had to make a decision of this is what we're going to do as the company during this time. And it was hard. It was hard for some of the people that were only working on general office work, even though it was so important. And then other people were only working on project work. Everyone has a different perspective. So you have to keep kind of sharing and leading and stuff, hard stuff.
Well, I really just want to say how much I appreciate your thoughts on office culture and the kind that you're trying, the kind of culture that you've created. And it's just not only the quality of the work, but the quality of the experience that your team has. This is not a question, it's just a compliment. I really, really appreciate that. And at some point offline, we should have a big, long conversation about egos in the architectural profession, because I've confronted one or two and it's just not necessary. And so I really appreciate that whole attitude that you have about the philosophy underlying the work as important as the work itself. And I just appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
And retaining the workforce as well is extremely admirable and in these trying times. Karin, I think we're at our time, so I just wanted to say thank you very much. That was fantastic.
Thanks for having me. That was really fun.
We appreciate the insights. We appreciate your time in prepping this and then coming and sharing your thoughts with us. So, yeah. Before we let everybody go, one thing that I did want to mention real quick is at noon on April 15th, we have our next Dean's Leadership Series that you might find of interest, another entrepreneurship related event here, April 15th at noon. The theme for that talk is the Unicorn Club, a conversation with the founders of two of Charlotte's billion-dollar startups. So you can register there at belkcollege.uncc.edu/leadership-series. It's part of our 50th year anniversary here for the Belk College of Business. And Mark Cologne also just mentioned that next year, starting fall 2021, it'll be the 50th anniversary for the College of Arts and Architecture. So congrats on that as well. So yes, thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate y'all coming out this evening. Thank you, Karin, again.
Thanks. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you, Karin, so much.
Bye now.